Ladies, I want you to breathe for a moment, because tonight, we're not just talking about him, we're talking about you. The woman who gave everything, her time, her care, her love, her patience, and still ended up being the one left standing in silence. You see, every woman in this room has one story in common. You loved deeply, you tried genuinely, you gave more than you received, and somewhere along the way, you started shrinking yourself just to fit inside someone else's comfort zone. But tonight, this is not a story about pain. It's about power. It's about that moment when a woman who was once taken for granted decides, I'm done teaching people how to treat me. Because here's the truth. The woman he took for granted is not weak. She's evolving. And the day she decides to stop chasing, stop explaining, stop waiting, that's the day his world begins to crumble in silence. So tonight, I want to take you on a journey. 6 powerful truths that will help you understand exactly what happens when a woman rises after being undervalued. Because he might have underestimated you, but he will never forget you. Your absence becomes the lesson he never wanted to learn. When you were there, he didn't see it. He didn't feel it. He didn't understand the depth of what he had. Because, ladies, that's the curse of comfort. People stop appreciating what feels permanent. You were always there. You showed up. You gave, you listened, you forgave. You tried to make things work, even when he gave you half of what you deserved. And while you were fighting to keep the connection alive, he got used to it. He assumed you'd always be available, that your love was endless, that no matter how carelessly he handled your heart, you'd always come back. But then, you didn't. One day, your energy changed. You stopped explaining yourself, you stopped checking in, you stopped making excuses for his behavior, you didn't announce it, you didn't post about it, you just went quiet. You pulled back your love, your attention, your care, and for the first time, he felt something he never expected. Emptiness. That's when the lesson began. See, your absence becomes a mirror. It reflects back to him everything he failed to value when it was right in front of him. The comfort he once took for granted starts to haunt him. The silence that he thought meant freedom now feels like punishment. He starts replaying moments in his mind, the way you laughed at his jokes, the way you supported his dreams, the way your presence made life lighter. He thought those things were small, but in your absence, he realizes they were everything. And this is the part he never wanted to learn, the part that breaks his ego in half. He learns that your love was not replaceable. He learns that loyalty, once lost, is impossible to rebuild. The same way, he learns that peace, the peace you brought, doesn't exist without you. Because he'll meet other women, he'll try to distract himself, he'll chase what looks exciting, what feels easy, what demands nothing from him, but it won't feel like you. It won't be you. That's the power of your absence. It teaches what your presence could not. When you were there, he took you lightly. When you leave, he carries the weight of that loss every day. He won't tell anyone, but it lingers. It lingers in quiet moments, late at night, when his phone doesn't light up like it used to. It lingers when he hears a song that reminds him of you. It lingers when he sees a woman with your confidence, your glow, your energy, and realizes he used to have that, but he let it slip away. And that, right there, is the regret that doesn't fade. Because he'll come to understand something. Most men learn too late. Women like you don't come twice. The woman who loved with depth, who forgave with grace, who stayed when it would have been easier to walk away, that woman becomes unforgettable the moment she's gone. Your silence, your absence, it's not revenge, it's revelation. It reveals the truth of who you were and who he wasn't ready to be. It forces him to sit in the discomfort of his own actions, to face the echo of your energy that no one else can replicate. And the most powerful part? You don't have to do a thing. You don't have to prove your worth, or chase his acknowledgement, or make him realize what he lost. Life does that for you. Time does that for you. The moment you walk away, the universe takes over and starts teaching him the lesson you were never meant to teach. He'll look back, and in that stillness, he'll finally see it. You were the calm in his chaos, the softness in his hard world, the only person who saw him clearly. And now, all he has left is the silence he once used against you. That silence, that empty space where you used to be, becomes his greatest teacher. He will never admit it out loud, but deep down, he knows your absence didn't just change his life, it defined it, because the woman he took for granted became the lesson he'll never forget. You don't heal by getting him back, you heal by getting yourself back. Healing is not about proving that you can make him miss you. It's not about showing him what he lost or trying to win the silent game better than he can. Healing isn't even about him. It's about you, the woman who forgot how powerful she was while trying to convince someone else to see her worth. You see, love can make you lose pieces of yourself when it's one-sided. You start bending your boundaries, minimizing your needs, and accepting crumbs because you believe that if you just love harder, he'll finally choose you the way you chose him. But the truth is, the version of you that loved him like that deserves to be loved back with the same intensity, and that kind of love starts with you. You don't heal by trying to make him regret losing you. You heal by remembering who you were before you met him and who you're becoming now that you're free. Healing is waking up one morning and realizing that your peace matters more than his approval. It's sitting with your pain, not rushing to cover it up with distractions or validation. Healing is messy, it's uncomfortable, it's the nights you cry and question everything. But it's also the mornings you rise with a new kind of strength, the kind that comes from surviving something you thought would break you. When a woman begins to heal, she starts noticing how much of her identity was tied to someone who couldn't meet her where she was. You start realizing you were doing all the emotional labor, explaining, understanding, fixing. You thought that was love. But love doesn't require you to abandon yourself. Healing means reclaiming all that energy you once poured into him and redirecting it toward yourself. It's saying, that effort I gave him, I'm giving it back to me now. You start doing the small things that make you feel alive again. You start dressing up for yourself, not for his compliments. You start posting that picture, not to make him look, but because you love the way you're glowing again. You stop stalking his page and start writing new chapters in your own story. Because healing isn't about waiting for him to come back, it's about you coming home to yourself. There's something magnetic about a woman who's healing. She moves differently. She laughs louder, but with peace behind it. She speaks softer, but with more power in her voice. She doesn't need to prove anything, she simply is. And that energy? It's intoxicating. It's the kind of confidence that no breakup can destroy, because you've realized that your value doesn't rise or fall based on who stays or leaves. And here's the most ironic part. The moment you stop trying to get him back is usually the moment he starts noticing what he lost. Because the energy shift is undeniable. You've stopped chasing, and suddenly the power dynamic flips. He feels the distance. He senses that the woman who once fought for him is now fighting for herself. And while he's busy wondering what changed, you're busy healing not for him, but for your future. Healing is freedom. It's choosing not to check your phone every 5 minutes. It's choosing peace over closure. It's realizing that closure doesn't come from a conversation, it comes from acceptance. Acceptance that he was a chapter, not your whole book. Acceptance that losing him doesn't mean losing love. It just means you're making room for better. And the beauty of this journey is that the more you heal, the less you crave the things that hurt you. You stop wanting his attention because you're full on self-respect. You stop needing his validation because you've built your own. You stop replaying the memories because you're too busy creating new ones. So no, you don't heal by getting him back. That's just reliving the same pain with a different name. You heal by getting you back your laughter, your confidence, your spark, your worth. You heal by remembering that you were always the prize. You heal when you finally say, I may have loved you deeply, but I love myself enough to let you go. And that's when true healing begins, not when he sees your worth, but when you finally do. The moment you detach, his control ends. There comes a moment, ladies, when something in you just clicks. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's quiet, almost sacred. It's the moment you realize that you've given enough, explained enough, cried enough. It's the moment you stop begging for clarity from someone who thrives on confusion. And when that moment comes, it's not anger that drives you, it's peace. That's the moment of detachment. That's when everything changes. See, for a long time, he knew your triggers. He knew exactly which words to say to pull you back in, which silences to use to make you doubt yourself, which moments to disappear just long enough for you to come running again. You became predictable, not because you were weak, but because you cared. You cared deeply, honestly, wholeheartedly, and he mistook that care for control. But when you detach, that control shatters. Detachment doesn't mean you stop loving. It means you stop needing someone to validate that love. It's not cold, it's clarity. You begin to see things as they are, not as you wish they were. You stop arguing to be understood. You stop over-explaining your worth. You stop waiting for his effort to prove your importance, because suddenly you understand that your peace is the real prize. When you detach, you take your power back. He can no longer manipulate your emotions because you've stopped playing the emotional tug-of-war. He sends a half-hearted text, and you don't overthink it. He goes silent, and instead of panicking, you breathe. You stop responding out of fear of losing him and start acting from a place of self-respect. That's when his grip weakens. Because control only exists where there's reaction, and the moment your reactions stop, so does his power. Men like him feed on your response, the calls, the explanations, the tears. But when you detach, you take away his favorite meal, your attention. You become unpredictable. You're no longer emotionally available for his games. He'll test it. Oh, he will. He'll text you at midnight, say he misses you, or suddenly like your posts just to see if he still matters. But when you've detached, those little breadcrumbs don't move you anymore. You see them for what they are, bait, and you're done biting. That's the moment he starts to panic, because control feels good to the one who holds it until it's gone. Suddenly, he's the one waiting for a response. He's the one checking your status. He's the one wondering, what happened? Why doesn't she react anymore? And here's the truth. It's not that you've changed overnight. It's that you've finally remembered who you are. Detachment is not about punishing him. It's about protecting you. It's about choosing peace over chaos, dignity over drama, self-worth over self-doubt. It's understanding that walking away doesn't mean you lost. It means you finally stopped losing yourself, and once you reach that state of emotional independence, you become untouchable. He can't shake you anymore because your happiness no longer depends on his attention. He can't guilt you into staying because you've learned the difference between guilt and love. He can't confuse you with mixed signals because you now demand clarity. Detachment creates space between you and his manipulation, and in that space, you rediscover your strength. You start noticing how light life feels without the constant tension, how your laughter sounds fuller, how your mind feels calmer. You start realizing that the power he once had was borrowed from your kindness, your vulnerability, your willingness to see the best in him. But now that you've taken that back, he has nothing left to hold over you. And that's what scares him. Because men like him don't fear losing a woman, they fear losing control over her. And when you detach, he loses both. So, let him wonder. Let him sit in his silence. Let him feel the distance he once forced you to feel. Because now, the roles have reversed. You're no longer the woman waiting for his attention, you're the woman who learned how to thrive without it. And that, right there, is the most powerful form of freedom there is. The moment you detach is the moment his control ends and your real life begins. Your growth becomes his greatest reminder. There's something incredibly powerful about a woman who chooses growth over bitterness. Because when a woman starts healing, truly healing, she becomes unstoppable. The same woman who once cried herself to sleep now wakes up with purpose. The same woman who once waited for a message now checks her phone only to answer her own goals. The same woman who once begged to be chosen now realizes she was never meant to compete for a place, she was meant to create her own. And ladies, that kind of transformation, it doesn't go unnoticed. Because nothing haunts a man more than seeing the woman he took for granted evolve into the version of herself that he was too blind to appreciate. Your growth becomes the mirror he can't look away from. It reflects back to him everything he could have had, everything he mishandled, and everything he'll never touch again. See, when you grow, you stop revolving around him. Your energy shifts, your priorities change. You no longer crave his validation because you've found a deeper sense of fulfillment within yourself. And that's the kind of glow no filter, no revenge post, no act of pretending can replicate. It's the glow of peace, the light that comes from knowing you made it through something that could have broken you and you came out better. He'll notice it in the little things first. The calm in your tone, the way you carry yourself now, the fact that you no longer flinch when his name comes up. He'll see you walking taller, laughing freer, living softer. He'll realize the version of you that once needed him no longer exists. And that's when it hits him. The woman he took for granted outgrew the space he kept her in. That realization will burn, because men remember the women who were good to them when they didn't deserve it. They remember the warmth, the softness, the effort, the care. They remember how you poured into them, believed in them, loved them through their flaws. And when you finally stop doing that, when you start pouring all that love back into yourself, they feel the absence. But it's not just your absence anymore, it's your elevation. It's the fact that you're thriving without them, that you didn't just move on, you leveled up. Your growth becomes his greatest reminder because it dismantles the story he told himself that you'd always be there, waiting, that he could come back whenever he wanted and you'd still be available, still the same. But now, you're not. You're wiser, you're stronger, you're softer in the right places and tougher in the ones that needed it. You've learned that being kind doesn't mean tolerating disrespect, and that love without boundaries isn't love, it's self-abandonment. And here's the beauty of it, your growth isn't about proving anything to him. It's about proving everything to yourself. It's about realizing that you were never broken, you were being rebuilt. Every tear, every silence, every sleepless night, it all became part of your transformation. You didn't just survive what happened, you transcended it. He'll see the difference in you and wish he'd met this version sooner. He'll look back and recognize that he didn't lose you by accident, he lost you by choice. He chose comfort over effort, ego over empathy. And now, your evolution stands as a reminder of what happens when a woman decides to stop shrinking for someone who was never ready for her magnitude. You'll notice how life rewards you when you let go of what was weighing you down. New opportunities, new friendships, new energy, it all starts flowing in because you finally made space for it. And while he's stuck reminiscing about the woman you were, you'll be too busy becoming the woman you were always meant to be. That's the thing about growth. It's silent, but it's loud. It doesn't announce itself, but it can't be ignored. And one day, he'll realize that your glow isn't just external, it's the reflection of everything he lost and everything you gained. Your growth will remind him that you didn't need revenge. You didn't need closure. You didn't even need him to understand. You just needed to rise. And you did. His regret will arrive when you no longer care. Regret doesn't come when you walk away. It comes later, when he finally realizes you're not coming back. It doesn't hit him in the moment when you're still crying, still hoping, still checking your phone. No, it hits when the silence stretches too long, when the absence feels too permanent, when the woman who once would have done anything to keep him suddenly doesn't flinch at the thought of losing him. That's when it starts to hurt. That's when his regret begins. At first, he'll pretend he's fine. He'll tell himself he made the right decision. He'll fill the space with distractions, nights out, new faces, empty conversations that try to mimic what he had with you. But nothing fits quite right anymore. He'll laugh, but it won't hit the same. He'll text other people, but none of them reply with the same warmth. And slowly, reality will start to creep in, that he didn't lose just any woman. He lost the woman who truly saw him. You see, regret is a slow burn. It starts as curiosity. He checks your profile. He wonders how you're doing. He scrolls through old pictures and remembers the sound of your laugh, the softness of your touch, the way you made him feel safe without him ever having to ask. But what hurts him most isn't your absence. It's your indifference. Because once upon a time, your world revolved around him. And now, he's just another name in your past. That indifference, that calm, grounded energy you carry now, is what shakes him to his core. He used to have the power to affect your mood with a single text, a single word, or the lack of it. Now, he's powerless. You don't react, you don't reach out, you don't chase. And that silence becomes his punishment. Because when a woman truly stops caring, there's no fight left to win, no control left to hold. Regret always hits hardest when there's nothing left to fix. He'll want to apologize, to explain, to test the waters with a, "Hey, how've you been?" But your energy won't match his anymore. You'll reply, if at all, with peace, not pain. You'll talk like someone who's already closed the chapter. And in that moment, he'll realize the cruel truth. He waited too long to appreciate what he had. What once felt certain now feels like a lifetime ago. The woman who used to beg for his time is now too busy building her own life. The woman who once felt small in his absence now shines brighter than ever without him. That transformation will haunt him because it reminds him of what he could have had if he'd just shown up differently. Regret doesn't come when he sees you hurting. It comes when he sees you healed. When he realizes your smile is genuine now. When your eyes no longer hold sadness but peace. When your confidence returns and you no longer seek his validation. That's when he'll understand that your silence wasn't anger, it was closure. That your distance wasn't punishment, it was protection. He'll think back to all the chances he had to make things right. The texts he ignored. The moments he brushed you off. The love he dismissed. And each memory will hit like a wave, one after another, until the weight of his own choices becomes unbearable. He'll see you laughing with friends, traveling, working on your dreams, living freely, and that image will replay in his mind like a movie he can't turn off. But by then, you won't be watching that same movie anymore. You'll be living a new one that doesn't revolve around his absence, one where your peace, your joy, your worth are no longer negotiable. That's the cruel irony of regret. It always arrives too late. It comes knocking on the door of a woman who's already moved on, and the part that hurts him the most, knowing he had her once, but he'll never have her again. Knowing that the love he took for granted now belongs entirely to her. Because when a woman like you finally stops caring, that's when his regret begins, and it never truly ends. You were never asking for too much, he was giving too little. Let's make something clear right now. You were never asking for too much. You were simply asking the wrong person to give you what they were never capable of giving. And for too long, you believed the lie that your standards were the problem. That maybe if you toned down your needs, softened your words, or stopped overreacting, things would get better. But the truth? You weren't too much. You were enough. More than enough. He was just giving too little. You asked for honesty, and he gave you excuses. You asked for consistency, and he gave you confusion. You asked for effort, and he gave you bare minimum. And because you loved him, you tried to meet him where he was, instead of realizing he wasn't willing to meet you where you stood. You started shrinking. You stopped voicing your needs because every time you did, he made you feel guilty for having them. You started accepting the silence, the half-hearted texts, the emotional distance. You started convincing yourself that maybe this was what love looked like. Constant waiting, constant wondering, constant hoping that one day he'd wake up and finally see you. But love doesn't ask you to beg for what should be given freely. Love doesn't punish you for being expressive. Love doesn't make you feel like a burden for wanting clarity. Love expands you, it doesn't suffocate you. The moment you realize that is the moment your power begins to return, because you stop personalizing his lack. You stop thinking, if I were prettier, calmer, easier, maybe he'd treat me differently. No, darling, you could have been the calmest ocean, and he still wouldn't have known how to swim. His lack of capacity was never your reflection, it was his limitation. You were never too emotional, you were emotionally intelligent. You were never too needy, you were simply craving genuine connection. You were never asking for too much, you were just asking the wrong man. And that's the harsh truth. When you ask a man who's emotionally unavailable to meet your depth, he'll label your depth as too much because it exposes how shallow his effort really is. He wasn't overwhelmed by your expectations, he was exposed by them. Your desire for love, communication, and effort highlighted his lack of maturity, his inability to show up. So, instead of rising to your level, he tried to convince you to lower yours. But not anymore, because now you see it. You see that every time you lowered your standards to keep him comfortable, you disconnected a little more from yourself. You see that every time you accepted less, you taught him it was okay to give less. Now, you know better? Now, you understand that your standards aren't obstacles, they're filters. They separate those who are capable of real love from those who are just pretending. And you're done pretending. When the right man comes along, he won't call your boundaries too much. He'll call them necessary. He won't be intimidated by your intensity, he'll be inspired by it. He won't tell you you're asking for too much. He'll thank you for teaching him how to love better. And here's the most beautiful part. Once you start giving yourself what you are asking for from him, You'll stop chasing anyone who can't match your energy. You'll stop waiting for someone to rise to your level because you'll already be standing tall on your own. You were never asking for too much. You were asking for honesty, effort, and presence. You were asking to be chosen without having to beg. You were asking for respect in the same way you gave it. You were asking to be loved in the same way you love. That's not too much. That's the bare minimum. So stop apologizing for your standards. Stop shrinking your heart to fit inside small love. Stop confusing emotional starvation with compatibility. The next time someone tells you you're too much, smile and remember, you're not too much for the right person. You're just too real for the wrong one. You were never the problem. You were the blessing. And one day, he'll realize that. He'll look back and see that the woman he said was too much was the same woman who simply asked for what he never had the courage to give. And by then, it'll be too late, because the woman he took for granted will have already learned that she was never asking for too much. He was just giving far too little. The woman he took for granted will never be the same. Ladies, listen closely. The version of you that loved him through his silence, that waited for him to change, that tolerated being misunderstood, that version of you no longer exists. She died the moment you chose peace over chaos. She was reborn the moment you stopped begging and started healing. He thought you'd always be there. He thought your heart was a revolving door he could walk through whenever it suited him. But what he didn't know is that love like yours doesn't wait forever. You gave him loyalty, softness, time, and he mistook it for weakness. But now, your silence is strength. Your distance is dignity. Your peace is your power. And when he finally realizes what he lost, it won't be your absence that haunts him. It'll be your evolution. He'll see you smiling again, glowing again, loving yourself again. He'll see that the woman who once needed him no longer recognizes him. And that, my love, will be his deepest regret. So, stand tall. Don't you dare dim your light to make anyone comfortable. You've survived heartbreak, disappointment, and silence, and you came out wiser, stronger, and softer in the most beautiful way. Remember this, you were never hard to love. You were just asking someone incapable of love to meet you at your depth. The right one will see your worth without you having to prove it. So walk away with your head high, your boundaries firm, and your heart open. The woman he took for granted, she's gone. The woman standing here now, she's the upgrade. She's the peace he'll never find again. And that beautiful soul is how you win without saying a single word.